and believe he is the dangerously wrong choice to serve as the director of FBI. We all have great admiration for the FBI. The men and women there serve our nation, do hard work every day, and for decades they've served as a non-political agency that protects us and defends the rule of law.
Kash Patel is getting voted on today, and I don't know, this is just some like cabinet member, whatever. He just asked for 10 minutes. He said he's voting no for Kash, which means to me he's guilty of something. And he's going to go 10 minutes now explaining why he doesn't think Kash Patel should get the spot.
I believe that Mr. Patel is on a mission to wreck the FBI. It's his own words. He wants to turn the FBI building into a monument or museum.
Okay, so this guy's an idiot, because that's a very emotional answer of him. He does want to shut down the building, and he says because no one does shit in there. He's like, we'll just shut it down. It'll be a museum of the deep state, and then we'll move the jobs to middle America, you know, where nothing really happens.
To the deep state. You know, I believe that this country and Congress is in the midst of a slow-moving but rapidly accelerating constitutional crisis. This is real, and we can ignore it or see it. It began most visibly, of course, in January 6, 2021, when two norms of this republic, the peaceful transfer of power and the renunciation of violence to affect the outcome of a vote count and certification, were breached, and where many members of the House and Senate also voted against certifying the election of the person chosen by the people in their own states. The president continues to say that the election was stolen, and he has coached his nominees to embrace the big lie. Mr. President, the first month of the Trump administration has shown a contempt for the Constitution, an acceptance of lawlessness that is dangerous to the future of our republic.
According to this guy, but I think over half of America's happy.
President Trump's election,
cash me outside, how about that?
Denialism was only an early sign of his disregard for the norms and requirements of the Constitution. Now empowered in his second term.
This guy is basically arguing that we should keep the status quo. He's like, listen, we don't need any reform anywhere. Just let us do what we've been doing.
A Congress and a judiciary which refuse to assert their independence. Mr. Trump has enacted executive order after executive order to dismantle our institutions. He doesn't have the authority to do what he's doing. The federal...
And that's why they've been suing him, and then the courts say yes or no. Come on now. They've been suing him like every day for everything. You have your legal battles, but if you lose it, you lose it. He's allowed to do it.
Funding freeze, clearly unconstitutional, invasion of the Article 1 power of the purse, shutting down agencies created by Congress without authority, revoking birthright citizenship, a constitutional provision that he asserts he can do by executive order, removing leaders of independent agencies created by Congress, clearly unlawful, firing inspectors general in violation of notice requirements created by Congress, unlawful, firing government employees who have civil service protections, clearly unlawful.
According to who?
Pushing, really, a quid pro quo order at the Department of Justice to drop charges against a corrupt mayor in New York so he'll accede to whatever the wishes are of the Trump administration regarding local enforcement. And that's only a short list. And we have reached a point where a federal judge has found that the White House defied his order to release billions of dollars in federal grants, marking the first time that a judge has expressly declared that the Trump administration is disobeying a judicial mandate. That is trouble. The country is headed into a situation where, in addition to acting without authority, the president and his enablers are indicting He will defy rulings from the third branch of our government. Vice President Vance has made it very clear what his point of view is on judges. Judges aren't allowed to control the executive's, quote, legitimate powers. And if the courts don't like it, let them enforce it. Of course, under our Constitution, since Marbury versus Madison, the court is the final arbiter of what is legitimate or what is not. And the executive branch must enforce the laws as interpreted by the co-equal branch of government. Mr. President, it is my view that this administration is showing maximum contempt for core constitutional values, including, most importantly, the separation of powers. This is not about what the president's agenda is. This is about his disregard about the limits that apply to each branch of government. And we have a dilemma. There are many in Congress that are fully in support of President Trump's policies.
What's the big deal about that? Like 4 years ago, everybody, was in love with Biden's policies, even though the people didn't like it.
That's his right to pursue them, any member's right to support them.
Okay.
But it has to be that we accept our unique responsibility, each of the 100 U.S. senators, that we have to guarantee that in pursuit of those policies, it is done within constitutional boundaries. That is
that's what the courts are for, Supreme Court, Appeals Court. If you have a problem, sue. And then they have sued, and the court agreed with Trump, so this guy's still freaking out over I don't know what.
Glue that has held this country together through thick and thin for nearly 250 years.
It's funny because to me, these are like grown men having emotional breakdowns in a government building on taxpayer dollars.
This is not just talk about civic aspiration. It's a recognition that the separation of powers, that the system of checks and balances, we're custodians of that, each of us here.
We got 11 people in here. Drop a comment. Do you support Kash or are you against Kash?
The concept of the executive's ambition should be matched with the ambition of the legislature. That's what's held us together through the turmoil of our own history. We have fierce debates about important public policy matters.
You know what, though? I watched the Canadian debates and Pierre Poilievre, whatever. Dude, they go hard over there. They go hard. They start throwing they start name calling each other. People get kicked out.
It allows us to resolve them despite intense disagreements is staying within the guardrails of the Constitution. That process is being threatened directly and aggressively. The president's attack on our Constitution on January 6th has continued to this day.
You're going back with this J6 BS. What about all of the BLM stuff? Just gonna look over that. It's just so weird to me. Why do they have so much focus on this J6?
We've witnessed a renunciation of the decision that the American people made in the 2020 election by President Trump's nominees. Many of them who came before us, including Mr. Patel, were unable to simply say who won the 2020 election. They continued.
Well, he did say when they were questioning him, whatever this guy's name is, Joe Biden was president. He was duly elected.
To stop the steal narrative even 4 years later. And now we have President Trump in his first month in office acting in ways that continues to challenge the constitutional order. I'm voting against.
Not really. He won the popular vote. He won the electoral college. He won the swing states. Every single county moved to the right. It's like a mandate. I don't understand what they're talking about. Just because they're emotional doesn't mean the rest of America has to be emotional.
Mr. Patel, primarily, but not exclusively, because he's clearly an instrument in that effort to continue eroding the precepts of the Constitution on separation of powers.
Wasn't it Biden who, tried to go after Trump and all
Are
these
you
other
worried
people
that
related
using
to
your
Trump?
home address for business puts your privacy
Yeah.
at risk? At iPostal
Literally,
One,
they
we
just
can
do
help.
exactly
you've
what they accuse Trump of doing.
Authority as a co-equal branch. This is a difficult time, particularly for many of my esteemed colleagues on the Republican side. You may support, as I mentioned.
See, like, this is something I keep seeing too on like X. It's like these liberals will come and say, "Oh yeah, you guys must be having a terrible time or something," or "Oh, I'm sorry for you guys. You guys voted for this." It's like, yeah, but we're enjoying this. This is good for us. They keep trying to convince us that it's not.
Policies of the president, but we've got to take a look at how he is going about trying to implement them. That really matters. We are all custodians of the constitutional order.
Support the cash man.
I'm regarding what President Trump has been doing in his first month in office as an illegal rampage. It's a rampage of illegality. He's showing a contempt for Congress and a contempt for the United States judiciary. Mr. Patel has signed on to that agenda. He isn't just someone who will be forced to participate in the president's campaign of retribution. He's an active participant.
Like retribution, but if you ask me, it's warranted, because if these people don't have accountability, how can people trust the government? You need D-class of these secretive, files, these backroom deals. Because everybody knows, whether you're Republican or Democrat, for years now, there's been zero, what do you call it? They haven't been open with us. They don't show us everything they do. Things happen behind the scenes. And people need to be held accountable for us to move forward and actually get some progress.
He's got his enemies list. We know this because his own words said what the FBI is, what was the FBI.
Ooh, he's coming after you, pencil neck Schiff. What happened at that one hotel?
FBI doing planning January 6th for a year. No basis for that other than to set up the attack on the good men and women of the FBI. Mr. Patel is the one who created a list of deep state individuals. This is like...
That's the part that's exciting to me. Like, he has a deep state target list, the ones who've done wrong. See, this guy's freaking out because he's on the other side, but me, I support it.
Russia kind of stuff, half of whom are Republicans in the so-called deep state. And he called it nothing more than a cabal of government gangsters and
cabal. How much longer before he drops Q?
Allies. This is the department he's going to be leading, really. And he's the one who said thank you to President Trump for helping put so many government gangsters in their place. Mr. President, Mr. Patel is not the person to lead the FBI. And my hope is that all of us should consider what Mr. Patel will do. He's going to use the power of the FBI to go after all those in government, those in the media, and those across the country he doesn't agree with. He cannot serve as the next director of the FBI. I yield back.
All post-cloture time has expired. The question occurs on the nomination. Do I hear a sufficient second? There appears to be a sufficient second. The clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alsobrooks, Ms. Baldwin, Mr. Banks, Mr. Barrasso.
Yeah, I guess that's it. Just those two senators or whatever had to have their little emotional breakdowns.
Mr. Bennett.
Oh, here we go. Someone else is coming. Here we go.
Mrs. Blackburn.
Who's next to complain?
Mr. Blumenthal.
They're voting now.
Ms. Blunt Rochester. Mr. Booker.
It's a no. Solid no. Looks like Angela Merkel right there in green. What's she doing here? Alright, you gotta announce the votes though. Mr. Whatever. Aye. Angela Merkel. Nay.
Mr. Bozeman. Mrs. Brett. Mr. Budd.
I can't hear the yay or
Ms.
nay.
Cantwell. Mrs. Capito. Mr. Casti. Ms.
I
Collins.
guess we gotta wait till the end to see who voted yes or no.
Mr. Coons.
Keynes.
Mr. Cornyn. Ms. Cortez Masto. Mr. Cotton. Mr. Kramer.
5147.
Mr. Crapo.
Oh, it says roll
Mr.
call.
Cruz.
This isn't yay or nay, I guess.
Mr. Curtis. Mr. Daines.
Mr.
Ms.
Daines.
Duckworth. Mr. Durbin.
Oh, that's the guy that was trying to hide the
Ms.
list.
Ernst.
That guy got so much pressure on X that he made a post saying, "I don't mind, release it." Then it's like, why were you blocking it the entire time, Durbin?
Mr. Fetterman.
Dude, that guy's staff quit on him because they said he was working on too many Israeli-focused things.
Mrs. Fisher. Mr. Gallego.
Mr. Gallego.
Mrs. Gillibrand.
Mrs. Gorilla Brand?
Mr. Graham. Mr. Grassley. Mr. Haggerty. Ms. Hassan. Mr. Hawley. Mr. Heinrich. Mr. Hickenlooper. Ms. Hirono.
I hate that Hirono
Mr.
lady from
Hoven.
Hawaii. Terrible.
Mr. Husted.
Hope you guys can't hear me eating though.
Mrs. Hyde Smith. Mr. Johnson.
Since 1913? That sounds about right.
Mr. Justice. Mr. Kane.
Half these people I've never even heard of in my life. Except for Angela Merkel right there. She's in the US politics now.
Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kennedy.
Mr. Kennedy. Robert Kennedy? Oh, we got great news today. Mitch McConnell is no longer gonna seek re-election. He's gonna choose to fall going up the stairs on his own time.
Mr. Kim. Mr. King.
Mr. King?
Ms. Klobuchar. Mr. Langford. Mr. Lee.
Jet Li.
Mr. Lujan.
Luhansk People's Republic.
Ms. Lummis.
Miss Hummus.
Mr. Markey.
Markey. Mark Cuban?
Mr. Marshall.
Marshall Mathers, Eminem.
Mr. McConnell.
Star-studded. Oh, that's he was just talking about him. I've never seen anybody fall up the stairs more than that guy. Even Biden can't compete.
Mr. McCormick. Mr. Merkley.
Merkley? Almost like Berkeley.
Mrs. Moody.
Dude, I used to have a teacher named Mrs. Moody. Hopefully it's not the same person. Alright. Roll call finished?
Mr. Moran.
Oh, still going.
Mr. Moreno.
Aye.
Aye. He's the only one that
Mr.
voted?
Mullen. Ms. Murkowski. Mr. Murphy.
Cash rules everything around me.
Mrs. Murray. Mr. Ossoff.
Ossoff. That guy's been catching some
Mr.
heat.
Padilla. Mr. Paul.
Mr. Paul. Chris Paul? When did Chris Paul retire from basketball and become a politician? But honestly, if any NBA player could be a politician, I feel like it would be Chris Paul.
Mr. Peters. Mr. Reed.
Oh shit. I'm gonna go get a phone charger real quick.
Mr. Ricketts. Mr. Risch. Ms. Rosen. Mr. Rounds. Mr. Sanders. Mr. Schatz. Mr. Schiff. Mr. Schmidt. Mr. Schumer. Mr. Scott of Florida. Mr. Scott of South Carolina. Mrs. Shaheen. Mr. Sheehy. Ms. Lawkin. Ms. Smith. Mr. Sullivan. Mr. Thune. Mr. Tillis. Mr. Tuberville. Mr. Van Hollen. Mr. Warner. Mr. Warnock. Sir. Ms. Warren. Mr. Welch. Mr. Whitehouse. Mr. Wicker. Mr. Wyden. Mr. Young. Senators voting in the affirmative: Banks, Barrasso, Blackburn, Britt, Budd, Cassidy, Cotton, Ernst, Grassley, Haggerty, Hawley, Hyde-Smith, Kennedy, Moreno, Paul, Schmidt, Scott of Florida, Tillis, and Young. Senators voting in the negative: Duckworth, Durbin, King, Lujan, Murkowski, Murphy, Padilla, Peters, Sanders, Warner, and Welch. Ms. Slotkin, no. Mr. Sheehy, aye. Mr. Schatz, no.
Did I miss a lot? Did Mitch McConnell fall going up the stairs again? 'Cause that would suck if I missed that.
Mrs. Moody,
I was on 1%.
aye.
It's a dangerous situation. Yeah, I was watching while I was running up the stairs on my phone. 29 people in here.
Mr.
Can we get a
Crapo,
like,
Mr. Crapo. Aye.
Feeling lonely. But thanks for watching. I appreciate you guys stopping by for real. Because I'm literally just watching stuff and streaming. And people like
Mr. Scott,
tune in.
Mr. Scott of South
And
Carolina.
I'm like, wow.
Aye.
We could just watch
Ms.
these together
Rosen, Ms. Rosen.
For no reason.
No. Mr. Tuberville, Mr. Tuberville.
Tupperware.
Aye.
Mr. Tupperware. I from Mr. Tupperware.
Mr. Husted, Mr. Husted.
Houston, we
Aye.
don't have a problem.
Mr. Johnson, Mr. Johnson. Aye.
Dwayne The Rock Johnson is up here too. Ridiculous. Is that it? That was like 500 members right there.
Mr. Rish, Mr. Rish. Aye. Mr. Kelly, Mr. Kelly. No.
No, serious question, guys. How much of our taxpayer money have they wasted just by doing this vote right here? Thank you for the like. Thank you for the like. Whoever that one person was, you're a legend. And a gangster, like Dr. Phil would say. The fake Dr. Phil.
Mr. Ricketts, Mr.
Adam
Ricketts.
Ray. We'll be
Aye.
right back.
Mr. Blumenthal, Mr. Blumenthal. No.
Isn't there like a brand of cigarettes named Blumenthal's?
Mr. Deans,
Blue
Mr. Deans.
Menthol?
Aye. Mr. Justice, Mr. Justice. Aye.
Alright, either they're gonna cry or they're gonna cheer
Ms.
after
Cantwell, Ms. Cantwell. No. Mr. Graham, Mr. Graham. Aye. Ms. Collins, Ms. Collins. No.
Oh my
Mr.
God.
Marshall.
What's the score?
Mr. Marshall. Aye.
this. Aye.
Ms. Lummis, Ms.
Miss
Lummis.
Thomas, aye.
Aye. Mr. McCormick, Mr. McCormick. Aye.
Eye for an eye. Is that it? There can't possibly be
Mr.
more
Schumer,
people.
Mr. Schumer.
No, Schumer.
No, Mrs. Gillibrand,
Of course.
Mrs. Gillibrand.
Of course.
No. Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Sullivan. Aye.
Wait, Mitch McConnell voted yes? Mitch McConnell voted yes on Kash Patel? Whoa.
Mr. McConnell, Mr. McConnell.
Whoa.
Aye. Mr. Wyden, Mr. Wyden. No.
Very unexpected. Mitch McConnell votes yes on Kash Patel? That was not on the bingo card ever.
Ms. Alsobrooks, Ms. Alsobrooks. No.
Imagine Mitch McConnell's one vote is the one vote that puts Kash ahead.
Mr. Kramer, Mr. Kramer. Aye. Ms. Blunt Rochester, Ms. Blunt
Ms. Blunt
Rochester. No. Mr. Kim, Mr. Kim. No. Mr. Merkley, Mr. Merkley. No. Mr. Langford, Mr. Langford. Aye. Mr. Kane, Mr. Kane. No. Mr. Warnock, Mr. Warnock. No. Ms. Hirono, Ms. Hirono. No. Mr. Booker, Mr. Booker. No. Mrs. Murray, Mrs. Murray. No. Mr. Heinrich, Mr. Heinrich. No. Ms. Cortez Masto, Ms. Cortez Masto, no. Mr. Rounds, Mr. Rounds, aye. Mr. Moran, Mr. Moran, aye.
How is this still going? How is there so many members?
Mr. Reed, Mr. Reed,
Is there one
no.
from every city?
Mr. Thune, Mr. Thune, aye.
Imagine if Thune voted no. That would be the craziest backstab. Mr. Thune, Mr. Thune.
Mr. Cornyn, aye.
Aye. Schiff is panicking.
Ms. Warren, no.
Of course Warren, no.
Ms. Hassan, no. Mr. Ossoff, no.
Of course.
Mr. Fetterman, no.
Of course.
Ms. Smith, no. Mr. Van Hollen, no. Mr. Markey, no.
Dude, a European leader just called Trump like Darth Vader. These people are losing it.
Mr. Coons, no.
I wish I knew what the vote was though. This is ridiculous. You would think AP is so much money they would just put a little ticker at least. President Trump has officially halted all weapons shipments to Ukraine.
Ms. Baldwin, no.
People on X are scared. They think he's not gonna get enough votes.
Mr. Hickenlooper,
But I think he
no.
is. If people fall on go along party lines, he's good. And also we got Mitch McConnell, which is crazy. They stopped. What happened? Hey, does anybody in the chat know what the fuck the vote is right now? I'm trying to look Twitter. I'm trying to look everywhere. I don't see it because it just keeps changing. But usually they have a little ticker. For everybody else, they had tickers except for this. Cash. Apparently it's tied 47-47.
Mrs. Shaheen,
He's a yes.
no.
No? What? Drum roll, please. 49-47? 48-47? I can't tell. Yeah, I'm curious why, Oh, never mind. I remember. He had a controversy. Matt Gaetz didn't accept. What if it ties? Doesn't JD Vance break the tie? Is live?
Mr. Bozeman, Mr. Bozeman.
All the way ahead. Skip forward a little bit. I don't think I was like completely live. I was a couple of seconds behind. Yes, 48. No, 47. Yeah, I think JD breaks the tie if it's tied.
Mr. Mullen, aye.
Somebody just commented, women will lose their right to vote under this administration.
Mr. Lee, Mr. Lee, aye.
$51.47. Done. Confirmed.
Mr. Gallego, no.
Of course. Dude, the people in AP's comment section are fighting each other. This one's like spineless voting yes. You Russian agents. And then there's some just going cash. One more to make it official. Winning. Congratulations, Cash. A bunch of future MSNB panelists in the room. Cash rule everything around me. Let's go read about Kash Patel, you know. What has Kash Patel said he would do if nominated? Let's see. So apparently it's 50 to 48 right now. So that might mean he's confirmed, I believe.
Mr. Curtis, Mr.
Oh, they're
Curtis,
still going. Hold up.
aye.
Kash Patel has said he will overhaul the FBI. He wants to do a house cleaning of the FBI and the Justice Department. He believes it's bloated, has been politicized, focusing on politically motivated investigations rather than its core mission of fighting crime. He had a book in 2023 called Government Gangsters. He's advocated for returning the FBI, prioritize transparency and accountability. One of his dramatic proposals included shutting down the FBI's headquarters in Washington and reopening it as a museum of the deep state. He also suggested reassigning FBI employees across America to chase down criminals instead of engaging in what he sees as political work. Patel has named specific and current former U.S. officials he believes are part of the deep state. Adam Schiff, for sure. Gina Haspel. Bill Barr. Joe Biden. like him. Yeah, it's official. I think he's been confirmed. I think that's it. But they gotta talk about it. I wanna hear them say, okay, that's it.
Mr. Whitehouse, no.
Mr. Patel.
The yeas are 51. The nays are 49. The confirmation is confirmed. Under the previous order, the motion to reconsider is considered made and laid upon the table.
Nomination of Kash Patel of Nevada to be Director of Federal Bureau of Investigation.
The President will be immediately notified of the Senate's actions.
Let's go. Drop a like for Kash. Who do you guys think's gonna get arrested first? Adam Schiff? I think Adam Schiff. That is my guess. I heard Justin Trudeau might get arrested in Canada for some, I don't know what he did, but they're investigating him too. Now let's see what Kash Patel said he would actually do. Let's see the deep state target list.
I recognize a senator from South Carolina.
Thank you very much to my colleagues. We'll soon be starting what is commonly called a vote-a-rama. If you've never been in one, it's okay. But no, it's a chance to have a spirited discussion and debate about policy and about the budget resolution. So what's happened here is that the Budget Committee reported out Senate Concurrent Resolution 7, that will allow through the reconciliation process the spending of money and the reduction of spending based on different committees. This resolution allows for $175 billion of border and immigration policy enhancements, but it doesn't spend a penny. It allows the Judiciary Committee and the Homeland Security Committee to come up with up to $175 billion plan to secure our border and do immigration reform. And what will happen is that those two committees, Mr. President, will work with the Trump administration to meet their priorities. There's nothing in this resolution directing one.
Whether you're setting new goals or continuing to commit to old ones, it's always the right time to make sure you're getting the nutrition you deserve. Available nationwide, macro bars offer the wholesome, sustained nourishment your body craves.
Russia and Ukraine. Israel's facing enemies on 7 sides. We've provided weapons to our allies in Ukraine and Israel. We've run out of 155 howitzer rounds for a while. We've got to reinforce our industrial base. We need more money into our military yesterday to make sure that we can deter a war, and if we get into a war, we win it. So the $150 billion will be allocated by the Armed Services Committee. We don't direct how the $150 billion is spent. We just allow the Armed Services Committee to spend that much if they choose. They decide what to spend it on. So this idea that there's somehow money in this resolution for Ukraine or any other specific purpose is not true. All we do is create a number for the committees to mark up to, and it's up to the committee as to what is in the $150 billion package. And to all the colleagues here, you'll eventually get to vote on that work product. And if you don't like it, you can vote no, and eventually that work product will have to be signed by the president. So that's the way the process works. But what we're doing today is jump-starting a process that will allow the Republican Party to meet President Trump's immigration agenda through the reconciliation process, and the Democrats used this very process to pass Obamacare and the Inflation Reduction Act. We're going to use it to secure our border. We're not going to grow the government just for the sense of growing the government. We're not going to create the Green New Deal. We're going to create border security, transformational in nature. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to embark on a plan to jumpstart the most transformational border security bill in the history of the United States. Because we need it yesterday.
Guys, comment down below. Should I stay with this, or should we go see what Kash Patel said he would do? I just need one comment. Stay on this, or see what Kash Patel has said.
We've had 11 million people come to this country legally. Fentanyl kills 3,000 Americans every 2 weeks. It comes across that southern border. We're running out of detention space to hold people.
Yep.
Tom Homan, the border czar, came to the Republican Senate last week or 2 weeks ago and said that ICE is out of money.
He needs more money.
This resolution jumpstarts the process to get Tom Homan the money he needs to fill the promises we made, to build more detention beds so you don't have to let people go. Laken Riley's murderer was in detention and released because of lack of bed space, wound up killing the young lady. That should never happen again. When you're detained, we should hold you and process you according to law, not release you. We need more detention beds. We need to finish the wall. This $175 billion will be allocated by the committees in question, and it will allow President Trump to finish the wall, secure the border, and deport criminals.
You're gonna finish the
ICE
wall?
is out of money. If you think it's a good idea to go after the criminal gangs that have come here over the years illegally, then you're right. To my Democratic colleagues, you should be working with us, not against us. Everybody should want to clean up the mess of the last 4 years. Everybody should want to go after criminal gangs. Everybody should want to secure the border because it's a national security nightmare. And nobody should want the dilemma of a nation having to let somebody go who could potentially be dangerous because you have no place to put them. This $175 billion will allow the most transformational border security bill in the history of the country at a time of great need. The $150 billion will be allocated by the Armed Services Committee. They'll decide what to spend it on, but there's a lot of modernization we need of our nuclear triad fleet. We need more weapons. Our stockpile is low. There's a bunch of things we can spend $150 billion on, but we'll let the Armed Services Committee decide those priorities. When it comes to the border security, $175 billion plan, the committees of jurisdiction will allocate that money, not this resolution. But without this resolution, we can't move forward. Why is this resolution important? Without this bill passing, Senate Concurrent Resolution 7, there is no hope of getting money for the border the way it needs to be done. Without this resolution passing tonight or early tomorrow, we're not going to get any money for the military without having to negotiate non-military spending increases. We don't have a lack of spending problem in our country. We have spent way too much.
Yeah, we spend too much money and don't take like accounting. I heard for the military, like just because they couldn't track the stuff they've bought, they just kept buying more things. And it's like, well, that's just a waste because you can't clean your, you can't clean up like your rolls of what you have. So I don't know, it's just crazy. Elon
On things that don't matter enough.
AI.
Part of this process will be committees finding offsets, reducing spending. So we're telling the Armed Services Committee, spend $150 billion the way you see fit. We're telling 2 committees to spend $175 billion to secure our border, and we're telling 7 other committees, find savings inside your committee to offset the spending we're creating in this bill. I think they can do that.
It kind of makes sense to me. Like, if you cut out the waste and all the LGB and all the BS, you'll probably find a lot more money to go to what you have to do.
I think what
for the Department of Defense, they're $2,000 per Starbucks cup. If you just cut that out,
DOJ is doing is good. This is a form of that. Every committee that's been instructed to save at least $1 billion will be able finally to go into the committee itself, what they spend on, and reduce spending because we're directing them to
recycle.
My hope is that the $342 billion we're going to spend to secure our border, help the military, enhance the Coast Guard, will be offset with $342 billion of cuts in other parts of the government. We can do it, but this resolution has to pass or we won't do it. I'm highly confident that the Republican chairman of
I don't know if I like this guy, to be honest. He's kind of a weird guy.
the committees in question will deliver. I'm highly confident that we
From what I know, he just wants to go to war with everyone.
can find savings in the government to offset the spending we're creating. The Democratic Party used this process for the Green New Deal.
Yeah,
They
but
used this process for
Cash is
Obamacare.
confirmed.
We're using this process
We'll see who
to
gets
help
the
our
first
military,
arrest.
who needs help, to secure a border that's been
Fanny?
broken, and enhance the Coast Guard.
Honor? No,
That's the difference. We're doing things that need to be done to make us safe. 3,000 Americans die every 2 weeks because fentanyl comes across the border. We're going to fix that. Since President Trump's been in office, border crossings have gone down by 90%. We want to reinforce its success. We want to finish that wall. We want to make sure we never release another person.
I think we should finish it, but I want to change the style because I get jealous of China. They have the Great Wall of China, and that one's beautiful, you know? It's made with stone. Trump always talks about that. He's like, we need to build more beautiful. I'm like, why is our wall so ugly, man? Can we put some cobblestone? Can we put some nice stuff over there?
In this country, because we don't have a bed, we're going to
Make the wall beautiful again.
make sure that the criminal gangs keep leaving, not staying, because the ICE doesn't have enough money. Why are we doing this? Because Tom Holman and Mr. Voigt, the head of OMB, told us 2 weeks ago we're out of money to finish the job that President Trump started. To my House colleagues, I prefer one big, beautiful bill that makes the tax cuts permanent, that does the things we need to do on the border and with our military, and cuts spending.
Just a quick comment. Weren't the Republicans mad at these like crazy big bills though, where you shove a bunch of things in there? Not that I disagree, but like weren't they the ones saying we should have individual bills for everything?
I wish you all the best. I prefer what you're doing to what we're doing, but we got to have a plan B if you can't get it done soon. What is the Senate doing? We've
What is this hood?
decided to front-end load security. We want to cut taxes. We want to make the tax cuts permanent. We're going to work with our House colleagues to do that. They expire at the end of the year, but we have time to do that. It is the view of the Republican Senate that when it comes to border security, we need not fail. We should have the money now to
I
keep.
agree with that one. Border security, get it done. Shut it down. Shut it down. Both sides. I think Canada needs to have their military shut down both sides.
The momentum going. When it comes to the Republican Senate, we believe the military needs money now because the world's on fire. To my House colleagues, we will all get there together. If you can pass the one big beautiful bill
This guy wants more money for Ukraine, and I disagree with that 100%.
that makes the tax cuts permanent, not 4 or 5 years, then we'll all cheer over here. Nothing would please me more.
There's 65 people in here. I'm assuming you guys are mostly American. You guys want to send more money to Ukraine or no?
Than Speaker Johnson being able to put together the bill that President Trump wants. I want that to happen, but I cannot sit on the sidelines and not have a plan B. This nation is under threat.
Rhino.
The illegal immigrants who have come here by the millions need to be sent back by the millions. The border needs to be secured. The wall needs to be finished.
It's like he says good things, but then in the back of my head, I'm like, this guy's just a war hawk, though.
We need more
He wants
detention
more money.
space. We need to upgrade our military capability now. The reason we're doing it now is because we were told ICE is out of money now. So I'm hoping that the House can deliver, but I am very confident that the Senate, early in the morning, Republicans, not one Democrat vote, will set in motion a process that will transform our border security to the most modern, aggressive border security plan in the history of the country, north and south.
You know what would be cool? You know they have that tech conference around. They have CES and other tech things. Why don't they bring in like new technologies for border security? Some like innovative AI things so that you don't have to build like some crazy wall, and it'd be cheaper.
It will set in motion $175 billion of new spending.
Thanks everybody for the likes, by the way. We got 55 people in here. Like I said before, it's pretty cool. Just watch stuff and you guys watch along.
Secure the border in a way that's never...
Comment below. That usually makes it more fun.
Been achieved in the past. If this resolution fails, God help us all. If this resolution passes, help us.
Fearmonger
is on the way. If you believe that America needs to be serious about securing their border, this bill gets the job done. If you believe the military needs to be stronger, not weaker at a time of threat, this bill gets it done. If you believe the Coast Guard needs more capability to deal with drugs and national security threats, this bill delivers. This is a security bill. This is a bill that will combat fentanyl killing Americans. There are more Americans dying every 2 weeks from fentanyl than on 9/11. Hundreds of thousands of young Americans, young and old, but mostly young, have died from fentanyl poisoning coming across that southern border. We're going to go after those cartels. I'm confident that President Trump is the new sheriff in town that we need. But without resources, it won't work.
True.
Tom Holman came
I
to
agree with that. Without resources, nothing works. You need monies.
us and begged us for money to continue the plan he's enacted to get gangs out of this country, to secure that border, to have more detention space. Tom, we heard you. We're going to meet your needs. So I'm excited about this debate. I'm excited about Republican-led committee chairman, finding ways to reduce spending to pay for this. This is a big deal, folks. The Republican Party is going to go all in on border security. We're going to upgrade our defense capability, and we're going to pay for it. Anybody at home ever had to pick between two things? You couldn't be everything, you couldn't have it all, that you had to spend because your child got sick or hurt, and you had to cut somewhere else because there wasn't enough money to do both. We're going to set priorities. If you have a sick child or something bad in your family happens, that goes first. That means you have to.
Let's go see what Kash wants to do. Should we watch MSNBC freak out over it? Yeah, let's watch MSNBC freak out over it. That'll be funny.
Donald Trump's pick of Kash Patel to potentially lead the FBI is bringing increased attention to Patel's extreme views and his so-called enemies list. In his 2023 book, Government Gangsters, Patel has an entire appendix listing what he calls members of the executive branch deep state. The list, which contains 60 names, including Democrats, Biden administration officials, and even some Trump appointees, among them former Attorney General Bill Barr, former Deputy AG Rod Rosenstein, Trump's former White House counsel Pat Cipollone, and Special Counsel Robert Hur. In the book, Patel also calls for firing the top ranks of the FBI, prosecuting leakers and journalists, and replacing the national security workforce with people who don't undermine the president's agenda. Yesterday on Capitol Hill, some senators were asked about Trump's selection of Kash Patel.
Let's watch them freak out.
You know, I don't know him. I have read some of his comments and seen them, and I think that's the reason that this process starting earlier is much to our benefit. We're going to get a chance to sit down. I'll get a chance to talk to him. I have a big FBI presence in my state. We do all the background checks for all the guns, and it's an important part of the FBI's mission, and I'll see it.
If you have the power of that office,
this guy was
the FBI
freaking out
director,
earlier,
and you're using it to go after political enemies, or the press, or people you regard as adversaries. That's worse than incompetence. That's abuse of power that you have. And that power is awesome.
He's not going to make it.
You know, we're talking right now about potential replacement.
We're talking right now.
Though, for Christopher Wray, somebody Donald Trump appointed in 2017, somebody that has bipartisan support with many senators on the Republican side and the Democratic side. He's supposed to have a 10-year term that started in 2017.
All right.
But
I'll be back.
There has been the signal from Donald Trump that he's going to fire Christopher Wray. And Willie, he's going to replace him. He wants to replace him. He wants to replace him with somebody that has an enemies list, somebody who was selling boots, cash boots a couple of years ago, but has an enemies list, and he's written it out, the people he wants to go after, a lot of Republicans, a lot of Democrats, a guy who has promised that he is going to go after reporters and journalists and arrest them for not following conspiracy theories about the 2020 election that have been disproven time and time again. Stand by. We're going to be talking about Dinesh D'Souza having to apologize in a second. And also saying he's going to shut down the FBI. He's going to clear it all out. This is, man, if it is not the most radical pick, it's one of the most radical picks. And again, if this is something that the Republican Party endorses in 2024, 2025, then it actually will be a Republican Party in the Senate that has reached a new low.
And back to your thought about Christopher Wray, the reason FBI directors get 10-year terms is because that is supposed to be insulated from politics. By definition, it spans at least 2 presidencies. So Donald Trump, as you said, appointed Christopher Wray in 2017. He's supposed to have a term that goes till 2027. He said he's going to fire him. And Kash Patel is a guy who is really the pure distillation of MAGA energy. He is a loyalist to the end of Donald Trump. His entire being, his entire public persona, his entire life has been run in the last decade or so in support of Donald Trump and attacking his perceived enemies, as you said, and perpetuating conspiracy theories. The job of FBI director is deadly serious because their work is deadly serious and something that should not be used as an appointment of a loyalist, a friend to attack perceived enemies. But that's what Donald Trump has chosen here. Open question.
Yeah, I wanted to react to Pierre Poilievre, however you say it. He had like a 30-minute interview with some white girl with like a floral dress. I'm going to watch that later, but I'm an American. I have to watch the American stuff first, you know. Cash money.
Whether the
but thanks Orca for stopping by, and thanks Shirley Lewis.
That goes along with this. David, you actually profiled Kash Patel a few years ago. For people who don't know him, in the piece, you detail how Patel rose from being an obscure Hill staffer to a key operative in Trump's battle with the intelligence.
Yeah, he was so low-key. I didn't even like notice him in the first what is it called? The first presidency. Apparently he was doing something in his cabinet, and I just never even heard about him.
Community. So what more should people know about Kash Patel as we enter this process?
I think, Willie, the main thing is that he is the most loyal, extreme in his loyalty member of Trump's entourage that I've encountered. When he was sent to the Pentagon as chief of staff under Chris.
Kash Patel should go on Joe Rogan. That would be crazy. Hey, Kash did say he wants to what is it called? Transparency, government transparency, and going on Joe Rogan would be crazy. All right. I want to put Kash Patel interview highlights with his name was Stu Peters, right? I believe Stu. Yeah. No, let's just put Stu Peters, because when he was getting questions, he said he didn't know who Stu Peters is off the top of his head, but he like clearly knew who he is, which is funny. I don't know why he wouldn't mention that. how this lady freaked out. Why no highlights? Kash Patel, deep state. Oh, here we go. Kash Patel
Some of
on
them
the
have
deep
seen
state.
it before,
Who's
and
really
they're
been
still
running the
in awe
country?
just as much as they were when they saw it in a video or a post.
Show me the connections here.
Who is running the country? Who was running the country prior to Donald Trump getting elected? I think it was Soros, to be honest with you. Soros and the crew, and some other like big donors get a say. But there's no way Biden was in charge. I don't know. It's just really confusing.
But
let's
just start
Kash has to say. Kash.
let's start with the Hunter Biden laptop thing.
Yeah.
How many were involved? How many of these agencies or other arms were involved in that cover-up? And they couldn't have coordinated. Are they just all motivated by the same thing?
So I think I'll disagree with you on that a little bit. I think they all coordinated. You cannot have that nature of an investigation. Let's remove Hunter Biden. Let's just say you have a laptop. It's got maybe child pornography on it. It's got maybe illicit financial transactions on it. It's got illicit possession of firearms, photography, and videos on it. It's got a whole list of people on it that are known criminals.
This is what people were freaking out about. The congressman and Senate, whoever was questioning him. And this is him confirming it.
That sounds exactly like the Hunter Biden.
But I've received those as a prosecutor at DOJ, and what we do is we take it to the FBI and we exploit the whole thing immediately. It doesn't take long. It takes a couple days, and then it takes another week or two to ingest the material. And then you put your leads out and say, okay, where are the crimes? Where are we going? Who are we going after? That's just...
Look at his thing right here. I bet he sells those. Cash.
Law Enforcement 101. That never stops unless someone or group of people tell you, don't exploit the laptop. Don't look for the data. And then when you do find it, just say you found X amount.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. Like, the people telling you not to look for something, saying it doesn't exist, it's fake, are the ones that are being implicated after they find out, like after they find what they were looking for.
Why? I've never seen a laptop. It reminds me of the DNC server hack, if we can go back real quick to that.
Yeah, that's a conspiracy too.
James Comey, for the first time that I can remember the FBI in U.S. history, had an intrusion of a political party's home network. Intrusion. Bored in. And the FBI would go there, normally, take the entire server and spend weeks exploiting that thing because it's so big. Comey handed the server off
to Ukraine, right? Let me guess. I think it was Ukraine or something.
To CrowdStrike. And the CEO of CrowdStrike at that time was this guy, Henry, who used to be James Comey's assistant. Not only that, he gave the private funding contract to CrowdStrike to exploit the DNC server because the fake news and the DOJ and the FBI wanted the narrative out there that Russia did the intrusion.
They manufactured like the Russia hate for something they themselves were doing, trying to hide something.
But only 25% of that server has ever been exploited to date because the FBI gave it to CrowdStrike. That cannot happen unless the DNC, the FBI, the DOJ, the media are coming in and saying, we need this to stop. So analogizing that with Hunter Biden, when you look at the reports that have made public about the FBI and what the investigatory steps they took into that laptop, you see they were shut down. You see now whistleblowers coming forward, whether it's the tax.
That's the thing too. Like whistleblowers were scared to come out in the previous presidency because they were using FBI and all these other three-letter agencies to attack anyone who opposed their idea of what should be going on, their weaponization of the Justice Department. So now that Trump's guys are in there and Kash is in here, which he got nominated today, just wait for the whistleblowers to come out. It's going to be something crazy every day.
Tax angle, which is a whole nother animal, or the criminal probe, you see it went up the chain and people said no. And here's the most glaring thing. Never in my life, as in law enforcement or intel or DOD, when we had a target of investigation, and we said, we are going to go interrogate you, where we refused. Not by the target, but by DOJ.
Yeah, that's weird.
The DOJ.
That's weird. How can you hear that and be like, yeah, this is code. It's all good. Like, you don't know what it is, but there's just something weird is going on,
FBI
right?
shut off the investigation interview request of Hunter Biden 2 years ago. And never.
To the Canadians watching, you guys need a Kash Patel over there too. But I think Pierre Poilievre kind of covers multiple of Trump's cabinets.
Allowed it to happen. That cannot happen unless it's coordinated.
Also, my guess for Trump, because I've been watching his speeches, and lately he just sounds exactly the same every single time. He says the same exact thing. I think, like, since people are going to be focusing on him, he's just going to let all his cabinet members do their job, and he's just the spearhead. Like, he's not going to say too much crazy, just a couple things here and there.
By the deep state.
So is the president running the country? Who's running the country?
Now?
Yeah.
No, I think it's an extension of the Obama administration. I mean, we'll give you an example of the cyclical nature of the deep state. Look, Susan Rice was in there up until 2 months ago in the White House. Samantha Powers, who... USAID, who was...
USAID got shut down. She was angry.
One of the individuals that I caught leaking General Phil's name to the media is back in power in the White House. These are just
General
two examples. Jake Sullivan, the current national security advisor to the President of the United States, is the guy that was out there advertising the Alpha Bank server connection that they had bought and paid for to the world, is saying, look, we have proof of Donald Trump's a Russian asset. When they were the ones that launched that operation.
That's what I've noticed too. Like, everything the Democrats say about Trump, it's just something they're doing and they're trying to paint it on Trump. But now, everything that they've been blaming Trump of is going to be shoved back at them. And they're going to have to defend themselves
to fund
just
that
like
false
Trump
narrative.
did.
He's at 1600 Pennsylvania. So, in my opinion, that crew of the Clinton-Obama class has been running the Democratic institution for a long, long time. And they're not stopping with Biden. They're smart enough to know they want Biden out, but they haven't.
You don't think they controlled Kamala? Of course they controlled Kamala.
Haven't figured out yet how to do that.
Yeah, I wondered. I mean, he looked like, you know, what I knew what we had on him because we did an investigation on the impeachment. So that took us to where over Ukraine.
Right.
That took us to Ukraine. You start looking into Ukraine,
Yeah,
you're like,
Ukraine is just a money laundering pit.
what? Everybody is there. Everybody is there. And I thought, when he came in, they must be hoping that he's going to die in office or he'll retire, and he's just a shill at this point. He's just, he's just do this, do that, do this.
Or Republicans will take the bait and impeach him. And so I've always said, and I fight everybody on this, impeaching Wray and Garland is the maneuver. Impeaching the guys that have created the two-tier system of justice and getting the documentation of their corruption to the American public before the election is the maneuver. Impeaching the two individuals that have violated 6 congressional subpoenas apiece and committed felonies is the maneuver. The political potshot is
watching this now, even more so, I believe people need to go to jail. People need to go to jail. And we're going to need to know why, exactly why, no redactions. Just give the people the truth now, dude. We got to move forward because it's just crazy how much has been able to just slip under the rug for so long.
At Biden, and what you have is the Democrats and the deep state coming in and saying, thank you. We don't want this guy to run. They're not stupid. Saying that about the deep state is dismissive. They're evil, vindictive, and very smart. And so far, we've taken the bait on Capitol Hill.
A lot of thank you guys for watching so far. If you can you guys just drop a like and subscribe? Yeah, I like watching stuff with you guys watching too.
People are not in government anymore. A lot of people that were at the FBI when you were looking into the...
Oh, yeah, and thanks for the people that are returning, like A-Lords, Orca, Shirley.
To the Nunes memo or the DOJ,
Canada
they're not there
videos
anymore.
coming soon, maybe in like an hour.
I guess the thing that's so irritating is people just fill their positions and business as usual keeps going. Who did you see then that were just as integral in, going after Donald Trump or just being, agents of the deep state? Who are still in government now that we should be looking at? Like, let's start with the DOJ.
Well, they got fired now.
So
I think.
yeah, great starting point. So Russiagate was launched in the National Security Division of the Department of Justice, where I used to work, where John Carlin was the head of the NSD, a U.S. Senate confirmed presidential appointment.
It's my initials.
And Lisa Monaco was head of Homeland Security at the White House at the time. Fast forwarding to today, John Carlin is the PAYDAG, the Principal Associate Deputy Attorney General. Long title.
Yeah, some of these references just go over my head. I need to look into more of these people.
Short form, number 3 at DOJ.
Lisa Monaco?
Lisa Monaco is the Deputy Attorney General, the number 2 at DOJ.
Jeez.
That's just DOJ.
Like
and you're right, we fired a lot of the FBI guys as a result of the Russiagate news memo and all that. I mean, that's what it took to remove these people. But if you don't think their proteges aren't in place, just like the DOJ, you're wrong.
There's so many of them embedded into our government. How can you? That's what I'm saying. Like, when I see the axing of entire agencies like USAID, me personally, I think it's necessary because there's so many of these people embedded. How would you even know?
We just found out about this McGonigal guy, right? Career FBI, head of counterintel, in the bag for Russia. Literally just got convicted of being on Russian payroll.
Damn, son. Russia.
He was the counterintel guy at FBI, one of them, during Russiagate.
See what I say?
I think it was pretty obvious that people like
Trump for
Andrew
crimes they
McCabe
commit.
were part of the deep state when he was at the FBI. He's gone, but
not really. So, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but Andy McCabe, Deputy Director of the FBI, later Acting Director, who I personally worked with when he was head of the Washington Field Office on terrorism cases, is now a hired shill at CNN in the media.
Damn.
See
how this works? Like, even media has a role to play because these people that get fired or they retire, they'll end up going to be a shill for a media company, and they just regurgitate, what the deep state wants.
There's Peter Strzok.
That's why Trump always went after fake news. Like, now it's just a common understanding that mainstream media is very biased and they have objectives. They have talking points handed down to them. So it's it's popular now, fake news, but back then you wouldn't really know. I didn't know.
CNN. So they get these guys who author the Russiagate criminal conspiracy, channeling the fake news media and putting out a furtherance of that conspiracy. So why they might be out of the FBI, these guys aren't stupid. They're down in the media advancing the next narrative. Former deputy director of the, and if you're a regular American sitting at home hasn't been paying attention for a long time, oh wow, deputy director of the FBI, I gotta listen to this guy. This guy who, by the way, broke the law during the Hillary Clinton email investigation and unlawfully leaked as the deputy director of the FBI information of an investigation to the media.
And then went to go work for the media.
And it gets better, though. Yes, he did go to work for the media ultimately. We fired him in the Trump administration, right? We took his pension because that's the penalty. Mm-hmm. He would later go to work for CNN. And do you know what Joe Biden did a couple of months into
Did he reverse his pension?
10 years
Gave it
president?
back to him?
Restored his pension.
Restored his pension.
Of course.
In full.
Go figure.
You can't make this stuff up.
There's no consequences. It's like the lawyer that doctored evidence to get the FISA warrant on Carter Page.
Can you imagine if the FBI guy, Kevin Kleinsmith.
He's still in.
He is now, I think he's in the private sector.
Okay.
But here's the crazy part. If I, Kash Patel, a national security lawyer at the DOJ, deleted information that the CIA had given me and said, hey, you, FISA court, secret surveillance guys, all good, nothing to see here, pled guilty to that felony, and the DC bar gave him his bar license back last year.
Dude, so much
He can now
corruption.
practice law again. And do you think that there isn't 10
grease
firms
the
lined up
pockets,
to
that's
hire
all it
that guy?
takes.
If he was that devious enough to work with the deep state to do that, that they're not doing it again?
And Kleinsmith, are we to believe that he just did that because he's like, yeah, I'm just going to get this done? Or was he told to do that?
And I'll connect the dots for you. This is another name, James
I know
Baker
so
at the
much.
FBI. Not there anymore, but he was the...
I can't believe he's spilling all of this.
Was the general counsel, the top lawyer at the FBI. In the FISA process, he's the guy that signed the warrant for Comey on Russiagate, okay? He gets caught having that meeting with Sussman. If you remember, the whole Sussman trial from the John Durham episode, where he gets Alpha Bank information brought in by a Democratic operative from a big law firm. It's one of the groups you don't have up there. The big law firms are killer, in my opinion, when it comes to Democratic. Perkins Coie and all those guys. Mark Elias, Sussman, these guys all meet with the James Bakers of the world.
I'm trying to write this down. It's kind of difficult.
Conjure up a Russia narrative, which he allows to go on his watch. And he permits the information that he knows was false to go up the chain to a FISA court. It gets way worse. Wait, I'm just warming up.
Dude, this rabbit hole needs maybe like 2-3 hours. I wish I could sit down with Kash and just be like, just give me 15 hours of everything. Just I'll record it and then I'll look at it after and just take down notes. It's just like they keep connecting the dots and then the story just keeps going deeper. He's like, well, I got more for you though. Hold on.
About all this, Chris Wray decides to keep him as deputy director, and then ultimately we have so much information against James Baker and his fraudulent conduct, he's fired. Do you know where he goes? He gets hired as the deputy general counsel at Twitter. Chris Wray would later form an 80-member task force for election integrity.
Yeah, on Twitter, right?
In the run-up to the last election. That task force, and this is public by his own admissions in the documents out of the FBI, met with Twitter and Facebook on a weekly basis to suggest to them what information to put out and not put out. Do you know who was coordinating those weekly meetings? James Baker. And then Elon Musk takes over Twitter and he says, I don't have any of the Democratic institutions working for me at X or Twitter or whatever it's called. And I said, and I literally was able to directly message him in public spaces and say, you have Perkins Coie as your defense lawyers. But let's put that aside for a second. You have James Baker on your payroll as your deputy general counsel who is blocking subpoenaed information to Congress for oversight purposes. He got fired the next week. This is how deep the deep state is. When you have guys like Elon who are smart as he is and whatever his politics are, they're there. Perkins Coie is right there, the authors of the narrative.
So if I had to ask you,
my mind's kind of blown. I think I got to research this off stream and then.
4 or 5 biggest names that are
too many pieces and too many new names. I have to remember, look into them.
The ones that, if you were in a deep state convention, they'd be the ones going, someday I'm gonna be all right up there with them.
Already, or the future that's sort of coming in?
Already. Like who are the ones that are calling each other and saying, you got to get your agency to do this?
Milley.
Oh, Milley. When is Milley going to get his accountability for what he did in Afghanistan? Oh, yeah, Kabul, what he did in Kabul. And then he also, behind Trump's back, talked to his Chinese counterpart. That's ridiculous.
At DOD, that whole place needs a monstrous reorg. Esper was at DOD.
Mark Esper.
Barr, formerly at DOJ.
Bill Barr.
Chris Wray, currently at FBI. Merrick Garland, currently at DOJ.
Terrible guy.
Merrick Garland.
Yeah.
How do these guys sleep at night?
He doesn't care. He's just getting payback for not getting on the Supreme Court.
Yep.
That's all he's doing. Thank you for my singular opportunity. I'll lie to the world and the media will cover for me, and I'll do a 60 Minutes interview. We'll say, there's not two sets of justice for Democrats and Republicans. And half the world will be like, oh, that sounds good.
It's true. That's what I was saying for the Canada videos. Like, so many politicians and, like, just people around the establishment, they have a way of, like, weaseling around and sounding good, but really they don't say anything.
When you look at the cases, there are. I mean, there's just so many. Esper was at DOD. Paul Nakasone was at NSA. I mean, there's just so, this thing, that's why it took me like 10 pages to name them all. And that's just the ones that were in the executive branch. We haven't even gotten to the legislative goons or the judges that have rubber stamped the deep state operation that has been going on. They were supposed to be our last constitutional check.
Oh, Adam Schiff is talking. Let's see what Adam Schiff is saying. I think this is live. I didn't want to hear that other Warhawk complaint, so I want to see what Kash was talking about. But if Adam Schiff is having a meltdown, you have to catch that.
Listen to your heart. In the chaos, we are calm.
Adam Shifty. Pencil.
Election, yes or no?
President Biden's election
Oh, this is
was
old.
certified. He was sworn in, and he
This
served
is
as the President
old.
of the United States.
Once again, the people who
All
are
right,
100% loyal
guys.
to
I think that's
President
it. I'm gonna
Trump
leave it
cannot
here.
answer that question.
I'll be back for
It
a
is
Canada
alarming
video, but
that you wanna
if you guys
be
can, drop a
incorrect, you wanna
like,
answer a
subscribe.
simple question.
Appreciate it
Factual
already.
question.
And I'll be back.
During a 2020